This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
Hi, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston, and we are both local sports reporters based in Syracuse, New York, who have a podcast that talks about the facts, the fascination, and the farm behind the New York Mets. Thanks so much for joining us. Joining you now after a Mets 7-6 loss in Game 2 of the NLDS. How are we feeling?
We're rather unhappy on this Sunday night. I mean, what are you going to do? The Mets lose a heartbreaker. They fought back again numerous times in this game. They go back to Citi Field for games 3 and 4 later on this week with the series split 1-1. But look, we're going back to Citi Field. Like, I'm not as catastrophic right now as maybe I could be.
And I think that is a part of the reason why. That Game 1 win, and we'll get into that, but first we're going to discuss this loss.
Sure.
But you have to admit, that Game 1 win right now is feeling mighty good, because you know that no matter how this series ends, not one, but 2 games are being played at Citi Field, especially when I guess give credit where credit's due, even though, honestly, I hate the Phillies fan base. Like, I really do hate them in the depths of my soul.
In the depths.
Hate. So rude.
Entirely.
So disrespectful. I hate that they're booing Nimmo when he's hurt. I'm getting on a tangent. But anyway, all that to say, one thing about their fan base is they're very energetic, very loud, and definitely a part of the game there. And our fans will be the same way. I'm excited that we get that opportunity.
Mets fans have waited a long time for playoff baseball at Citi Field. It's been years. I mean, Citizens Bank Park was a morgue today for literally through, 7 innings?
They boo their own fans.
They were booing their own players. Look.
Their own players is what I meant.
If you did not listen to the origins of this podcast, I am from the Philadelphia area, and I grew up a Mets fan. There is no one that hates the Phillies and their fans more than me. All the friends I have from high school, everybody, a lot of people in my life are Phillies fans. I can't stand them. They're brutal to the point of sports fandom, like brutal to the point of too far. Too far.
And you know, it's funny. Like, I knew that you always felt this way, and this was like Philly, like your biggest op for as long as we've had this podcast, which has been a few months now. But I didn't understand exactly why until lately. And I am really disgusted. And I feel like, you know me, like, it's rare for me to say that. Like, I respect a lot of fan bases, even the Yankees, this and that. I actually hate what I see. Horrific. Like, why are you going to boo your own players and then you're going to turn around and cheer and all? Like that is so... Like, do you actually think that that's going to help your own players when you're booing them? Like, you just jumped ship in the middle of the game.
Brutal to the point of disgusting and disrespectful to both teams, to their own team. This is an anti-Phillies podcast. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's get into the scoring summary a little bit. Top of the third, Vientos. Whew. Vientos, baby.
The opposite field power. I mean, Mark Vientos is just like, the guy's like 23, 24 years old. I love him. I love him.
So he gets a homer to right. Lindor scored, and the Mets have a 2-0 lead. Then, top of the 6th, Alonso homered to right center. No one on base, of course. We're back to our old, classic.
I'll take my flowers where I can get them.
Sure. It's 3-0 New York Mets. Absolutely take flowers, and I appreciate the fact that, again, you're getting those little inklings of Alonso's back. I'm not saying he's consistently, but he's hitting, and he's giving you big moments.
He's not dead
by any means.
And this is where, just by the way, you knew the 3-0 was never going to be enough. If you thought in the top of the 6th that this game was over, you're delusional.
I didn't think that it was over, but honestly, I felt clearly better than I should have.
Sure.
When it was 3-0, I was kind of like, we're so back.
Yeah.
Like, this is that. I was like, from the start of this series, I'm just going to say it in case it happens. You're wearing your little, I love that.
Oh, thanks.
I love that little wrist thing.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's so nice.
Everyone.
That's so pretty.
Thanks.
I really thought when it was 3-0, I was like from the start, before this series began, I thought Mets in 4. I always thought Mets in 4. I don't know why.
Which is what my dad said.
Really?
Yep, you and my dad.
Oh my God, soul sisters.
Soul sisters, Mets in 4 or 5. I never thought it was going to be Mets in 3, so let's just put that out there right now.
But when it was 3-0 today, I was like, maybe it could be. I was wrong.
There's a chance.
So anyway, we get beyond that point. Yes, bottom 6th. And up until this point, Severino is just absolutely cooking. Like, certified playoff pitcher. Harper has a monstrous homer to center. Turner scored. It's 3-2 Mets. And that is immediately followed by Castellanos, who homered to left center. We got a tie ball game at this point.
Yeah, the reason why the Phillies lineup is so horrific is because Castellanos protecting Harper, or honestly, whichever way you want to say, Harper protecting Castellanos, whichever one, is dangerous. Castellanos, a guy who was in a slump for a large majority of this regular season, but he's so good in the clutch. It's almost like you felt it after that Severino home run that he was going to, I'm not saying I predicted that he was then going to give up to one to Castellanos, but I certainly didn't think he was getting Castellanos out. It was the left in Severino for a batter or two too long. Tie ball game, it is what it is. He pitched a gem before that. All of a sudden, he hands the bullpen a tie game, which isn't something I can say I ever feel good about with this Mets bullpen.
And I understand that. It's also tough because, right, of course, when these things happen, you want to look back and think, how could things have gone differently?
Yeah.
In a way, though, I feel like up until that point, Sevy kind of earned to go against them.
Yeah.
Also, up until that point, I'm pretty sure Harper entered that at-bat 0 for 2.
Yeah.
I mean, he was doing a good job against him. Also, I just want to throw this out there because I'm just curious if it crossed your mind at all. Again, I don't want to just act like I'm freaking psychic, but when Harper went up there, I was like, I really don't feel good about this at all. Especially because it was a moment with high pressure. I was like, something bad is certified about to happen here. Go ahead.
Bryce Harper and Edwin Diaz, which we'll get into Edwin Diaz in a moment, have the opposite problems. They have two. Bryce Harper has a penchant for coming through in the clutch. Edwin Diaz freaks out in the clutch, which is not what you want from your closer, and I'll get there. Yeah, I didn't feel good about the Harper at bat at all either. All of a sudden, Citizens Bank Park is alive, and I hate them all.
But this is what I was going to say.
I hate them all.
I hate them.
I hate them.
But what I was going to say is there any version in that situation where you walk him? And mind you, if Castellanos would have hit a home run, I say that knowing that the outcome would have been the same. It would have been 3-0 either way. 3-3 at that point either way.
I don't think you walk him. My dad said the same thing. Like, do you walk him? I don't really. That's the problem with the Phillies lineup is you don't feel good about walking Harper because then you got Castellanos.
I know, and that we're actually going to make that our question of the episode. Like, would you have walked him there, or is it not even worth it? I'm just curious what people have to say.
Tie game.
All told, it's a tie game. It's 3-3 at that point. The Mets continue to strike back.
Yeah.
They don't quit. And that's something we're going to say every single episode, I think, throughout this podcast until this magical season ends, which is hopefully in a beautiful way.
In a long time.
In a long time. Nimmo homers to right center in the top of the 7th. The Mets have another lead 4-3. How are you feeling at this point? Because you watched this whole game live. I watched most of it too.
I did. The Nimmo home run was great. I felt good at that point. I did feel like they needed another insurance run. You never feel like with this Mets bullpen, again, that one run is good enough. You just don't. Sometimes I don't feel like 2 runs is good enough. So even after that Nimmo home run, and this is where I have to take a beat on something.
Do it.
Nimmo hits that home run. The announcers on this game, I have made it clear that we wish that the local broadcasters, Gary, Keith, and Ron, could broadcast these games. They cannot. Now, the national broadcaster today, I don't know if you listened to this game. I know Mets Twitter was all over it. Adam, I believe it is Amin, and Adam Wainwright, to no one's surprise, and AJ Przinsky. I mean, it was outrageous. This is not even me just doing this as a Mets fan. It was outrageous. First of all, Nimmo hits that home run. That's why I brought it up here. They say that he's been dealing with heartache all year. Then they don't expand on why he's been dealing with heartache. So if you're not a Mets fan, you would not know, which is that his grandmother died, by the way.
They didn't even say that?
No, they just said he's been, on a week where his heart's really hurt, or I forget the exact phrasing. Then they don't explain why. They don't call that home run with any excitement to break the tie in the game. Like, that was the most Philly fan broadcast booth I have ever seen, and I am not saying that with the bias of a Mets fan. I really am not. I wish it was the local guys. It's not. There's some national guys that I think are a lot better, such as Bob Costas. John Shambi called the first game of this series, and I really think John Shambi is decent. These guys today, obviously Adam Wainwright is not a guy who's a Mets fan, and I know that, but the play-by-play guy was screaming every time the Phillies had a pulse. The Mets are up there, it's 3-0, and they're talking about how the Phillies can get back in this game. Pete Alonso just homered. What are we doing? The bias today was nuts.
And I'm going to just put on my broadcasting cap for a second.
Oh my God.
That is just bad business.
Bad business.
Just from a broadcasting standpoint. If you are one of the local guys and you've been covering the team the whole year, of course, baseball is different than a lot of other sports in the sense that you have these local guys who are with the team for the entire duration of the regular season. And of course, they're going to be upset when the Mets lose, happy when the Mets win. That's fine. If you're a national broadcaster, it's a different story, man. Now you know that you have both audiences who are watching. You need to be objective. That's what journalists do.
That is what journalists do. I don't know if it was because Wainwright was in the booth. I don't know if it was because it was at Citizens Bank Park and it was in Phillies territory. It was just outrageous. The Mets were hitting these balls over the wall and it was like dead silence. The Phillies right fielder makes a sliding catch and they're like screaming, crying, and throwing up. Like, what are we doing? It was
the screams they scrumped.
The screams that I scrumped, screaming at them. I never want those three on a Mets game ever again. Thank you. Good night. They were terrible.
Yeah, that's just, again, just really disgusting.
Disgusting and disrespectful.
Wait, Phillies fans, the broadcasters today, disgusting. So anyway, back to the summary. Right, so it's 4-3. And at this point, right, we're starting to see some relief. We're seeing they go with Buto first, and then they go to Diaz. Bottom of the eighth, yeah, we got problems.
How did you feel about the decision to bring in Diaz off the top?
So just to clarify, Diaz actually came in the bottom of the seventh.
Yes.
He got one out to end the inning. Fine. I mean, listen, I a week ago would have been like totally confused and surprised to see him come in the seventh at all. But now that we've seen that already once, I understand that this bullpen is kind of running on low and they're going to do what they need to do. And okay, fine. But obviously always the question there is, if things don't go well for Diaz,
then what?
In an attempt to make a literal
7
out save, who is coming in? And the answer to that is Tylor McGill.
Oh, I'll get there. Listen, Carlos Mendoza, I did not like the decision. I said that as I was texting my dad throughout this game to bring in Diaz with 7 outs because, like you said, if it doesn't work, which it didn't, now what do? It's putting your cards on the table, right? If it worked, we'd be sitting here applauding it all over. But it didn't work. And we can
both say that, right?
Yes. Hindsight's 20/20.
I like the decision if it worked, and I get it that that's a bad answer.
I didn't feel good about it at the time. Listen, Diaz, I mean, maybe bring him in for 4 or 5 outs, 7 outs. Like, we got a long way to go in this game. I know the bullpen's gassed. We'll get there too as to why Tylor McGill's pitching the bottom of the ninth. But he wasn't sharp. His slider wasn't breaking. He didn't trust his fastball. He had one of those Edwin Diaz moments where you can see it in his eyes. He's not Edwin Diaz. It's not the whole thing. And look, for this Mets team, if we're going to continue to make a run here in October, when you can't trust Edwin Diaz, it's not good. Edwin Diaz has blown a considerable amount of games this year. When he's on, he's really on. When he's really off. But you don't know until you put him in the game
what's going to happen. I mean, he's blown a significant number of saves. And I will say this, I'm just going to say it right now just so we can get it out of the way. If there's one thing that concerns me, one thing that could really get in the way
that could kill them
of this potentially beautiful, amazing, astonishing run, yeah, it's Diaz.
It's Edwin Diaz.
It is.
If you don't trust your closer, who do you trust? And then on a night like tonight, which we'll get there, why is Tylor McGill pitching? I guess Stanek's not available, Maton's not available. I know they've given you some big innings here. Buto had already pitched, but who else you got? Like,
which is the only other thing it does lead me to is, honestly, and I get it that Buto in the last outing, not great. But do I think that we could have given him one more out there? I wouldn't have been opposed to it. But end of the day, I get it. Mendoza needs to make a lot of tough decisions. They're not all always going to go great. But I definitely will say, when you see Diaz in any situation in the seventh, surely you're thinking, who the F is coming next?
When he walked Bryce Harper, that's when I knew. You can't walk Bryce Harper. I'm sorry, you can't.
Just can't do that. So that brings us to the bottom of the eighth. Stott tripled to right. Harper scored. Castellanos scored. It's 5-4 Phillies. The inning ends with it being 6-4 Phillies. I'm also just going to say this to clarify it. In the eighth, yes, Diaz walked Harper, and he was accountable for everything up to the 5-4 Phillies lead. Beyond that, it's no longer Diaz. Enter Tylor McGill, which I if you've watched this podcast for literally any amount of time besides today, you'll know that Ashley always has feelings when it comes to this man. I always have feelings.
So let's take a beat on Mark Vientos, right? That is unbelievable that he hit a second home run. You almost felt it. I almost felt it. Lindor walks. Lindor starts everything that ever happens good to this team. Vientos ties it. I couldn't believe my eyes in the top of the ninth. Honestly, I thought the game was over when it was 6-4. I really did.
I did too, which is funny because after everything we've seen, I feel like, how can you not be a part of the you gotta believe? How can you not think that there is something that could happen or that they could punch back? But it just felt so unbelievable. Especially
and
because
the announcer didn't call it like it was anything special.
He sucks. And also, before that, like, Vientos had an error. Like, for it to be him of all people, like, you guys need to understand, this is like a young boy. Like, he's
like 23 or 24.
This is like not a grown man.
He started this year living in our good old town of Syracuse, New York.
Like, he was just hanging out 10 minutes away from us, just hoping for an opportunity, hoping for a chance. And then he takes Brett Beatty's spot, and wow, have things changed since then.
I saw a tweet today that said Mark Vientos ate Brett Beatty in the womb.
He did.
Sorry.
He unfortunately
Anyways,
did.
Vientos, unbelievable, ties it. I couldn't even believe my eyes at this point.
Couldn't believe it.
The Mets, we've talked about it so many times, the magic that they turn into from the 7th inning onward. Like, Mets games are, you know, surely entertaining, and I'm still watching from innings 1 to 6. Inning 7 to 9 of New York Mets baseball, and specifically playoff baseball, cannot miss TV. Like, can't miss television.
It is
appointment viewing.
It is a show. Every single time we get to like the 8th inning, I'm like, I need a hero. And there is always a hero.
Always.
Who pops out at some point.
Always.
Couldn't believe it. So I'm like, all right, we got life. We got a chance.
And then Tylor. I have to collect myself because just I already said it. I know that Maton, and I don't know if Stanek was available. Tylor McGill in that spot was just the stuff of my nightmares if you've listened to this podcast now. First of all, what I'll also go with here is that in the bottom of the 9th inning, okay, he has Castellanos up 0-2. He's throwing that little slider, sinker, sweeper, whatever you want to call it, that isn't breaking. It's bouncing in the dirt. You can't afford those walks. He isn't throwing it over the plate. When it was 0-2 to Castellanos, I was on the phone with my father, and I said, blow a high fastball right by him. Do not throw him that little sinker, SHIT, for lack of a better word. Bouncing in the dirt. I don't want to see it. It's not good. It isn't a strike, and they're not swinging at it. It was the game when Castellanos, I mean, you had him 0-2. What are we doing? Put it to bed. Like, the Tylor McGill experience is not an experience that I ever asked to be a part of, and I want out of it. Tylor McGill sucks.
And I know that people will be in here.
And I know he doesn't suck.
I was going to say, I know, because people will disagree. I'm going to say it. He does not suck all the time.
He doesn't suck all the time.
He actually has done well in some situations where it's really mattered lately. But I hear where you're coming from, and I'll be your therapist right now. Like, it makes sense to me why you're feeling so upset, and I validate your feelings.
He was nearly through the inning, and then he just falls apart. That's what I've been saying about him all year. The mental, same as with the Diaz mental, which is something that I don't see from some of the other pitchers on this staff. You just see the mental meltdown the minute there's a runner on base. I hate it. I do not want to be a part of another Tylor McGill bottom of the 9th inning.
And it sucks, right? Because again, you're 1 strike away, but to quote myself from probably a week ago, with 1 strike and a quarter, you can make a phone call. There's nothing that you could do. End of the day, it is over. And we were even texting during that. Ashley is not working today. Came in specifically for this.
Yes.
Love that.
Very good.
Really, really means a lot. And you're like, I'll come in before we get to extras. And then and then the next text comes in if we get there.
Next text comes in on my way.
That's all I wanted. Like, if there's one thing that I'm going to leave this game feeling, I just wanted this Mets team to give me a chance.
Yeah.
Give me a chance in extras. Because honestly, once we're in that point, I'm betting on them. I really am. I think they would win.
Every time I'm betting on them. But even, right, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about, all right, we get to extras. Who's pitching? The ghost runner, which, by the way, I'd like to say I think it's absurd that the ghost runner is a thing in the postseason. I hate that. You want to do it in the regular season to speed up games? Mm-hmm. Fine. In the playoffs, I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
anyway, we didn't get there, and I didn't get to see it, so forget it. But I'm sitting there thinking about who's going to pitch these extra innings because the Mets bullpen is so gassed right now. Now, will the off day on Monday, tomorrow, help them with that problem a little bit? I would hope so. But Edwin Diaz has pitched so much lately. So has like a Maton, so has a Buto. I don't know. They need to figure it out in the bullpen somehow. I mean, hopefully, if you make it to an NLCS, you can get some extra arms on that bullpen roster because they get a chance to remake the roster before every new series. But yeah, they're gassed right now, and that just is what it is.
Listen, obviously they lost today, but if there's one thing you can pull away from it, best outcome would be they went to extras and they won. I actually think worst outcome would be they go to extras and still lose.
Yeah.
If they're going to lose, then I'd rather them just save their arms, get it over with. Okay, fine. I'm not saying, and I would obviously have preferred they won. I think everybody who listens knows that. But I'm just saying, if they were going to lose, then you know what? Maybe everybody gets a chance to rest. Now we're going back to Citi Field with 2 opportunities to shut this shit down.
Yeah, look, we're going back to Citi Field. Like I said to start this episode, it isn't all over. You took 1 in Philly, right? I mean, that's 2 in Philly would have been outrageously fantastic. You get 1 in Philly, you're going back to Citi Field. I still think Mets in 4, maybe 5. I still think the Mets win this series. The Mets are a better team than the Phillies, in my opinion, in nearly every realm, and you're seeing that in this series. Now, the one major concern that I have is the pitching in the bullpen. The bullpen lost them this game today. There's no other way to go around it. The bats fought back numerous times. Nimmo, Vientos, home run. If there's an area I'm worried about, it's the bullpen and it's the pitching. So we'll see.
And you know what? I'm still going to give a little credit where credit's due. I'm feeling bummed out today, but for them to go into that horrific city and come out with 1 win.
City.
And I don't actually have anything against the city, so everybody relax. But that fan base is trash.
Them and the Philly sports fans.
But you know, it's the Eagles too. No, let's just be clear about it and just say what we need to say. It's not just the Phillies, because we all know it's the same fans. I do not respect a fan base that boos at their own players.
Disgusting.
I would never do it.
And disrespectful.
Disrespectful. The Mets could be down by 10. I'm not hearing any other Mets fans booing any of the players. That's so wrong.
Because you got your guys. Like, the Mets could break my heart 10 times out of 10.
It's my
and like
boys.
those are my, like, do you have the back of your own players? What are we doing?
That's my family, bro. Like, what are you doing?
Phillies fans suck.
Awful.
Thank you.
And also, they were too rude. Like, you guys, end of the day, like, we're all fans of a team. It's obviously fun to go back and forth and this and that. But like, I do feel, especially in the postseason, there needs to be a little respect. I don't want to be seeing death threats and violence and all this egregious BS. Like, keep it respectful. And if there was ever, and of course there will be, Phillies fans who come into Citi Field, I feel so confident in saying that Mets fans would respect them.
Yes.
And that makes me feel proud.
Or at least not make them feel unsafe. I saw Tylor, McGill's mother on Twitter, who seems like a wonderful lady, by the way, for all the stuff I have to say about her son, saying that all of the Mets wives, the Mets family members, literally did not feel safe in Game 1 in Philadelphia. They had to have like 20 security guards. Like, it was a scene. That is disgusting, and it is disrespectful, and I hope the Mets rock the Phillies in Game 3 and 4. I want them out. I want them dead.
If you mess with the Mets wives, you are no friend of mine.
No friend of mine. You have no home here.
You're an enemy of mine. You're an op.
Certified op.
All right. Anyway, because we didn't get to talk to you guys after Game 1, we may as well just hit it a little bit because that was iconic. It was a pitcher's game for a while there. Obviously, bottom of the first, Schwarber
Game 1.
Game 1. Schwarber leadoff home run against Kodai Senga. That sucked, but he actually did okay in the rest of his 2 innings that he pitched. And then in the top of the 8th, this was a 5-hit, 5-run 8th inning that was made up of a bunch of beautiful singles plus a couple other things, but not one extra base hit. Everybody eats.
Everybody eats.
And I loved that. I thought that was a great inning. It really was.
Yeah, Vientos right in the middle of it again. I think we didn't get to talk to you guys before this game, so I was shocked, as I know everybody was, by the decision to start Senga. I mean, look, he only gives you 2 innings. You wish that he had more than that in him, but I think it did throw the Phillies off. I think the Phillies probably saw Carlos Mendoza get up there and say that Senga was started in, and they were like, what? What are we doing?
So confusing.
So in that realm, and look, like we said, the pitching needs every inning out of someone new that it can get. It worked, and it is what it is. We'll see what they continue to do with Kodai Senga throughout the postseason. But yeah, I mean, it was a good game. It was a good first win. There's nothing that I love more than shutting the Phillies down in Game 1, and the odds are with you if you win Game 1 of this series. There is no game, obviously Game 5 or Game 7, but no game otherwise that's more important than Game 1 of a playoff series.
Not one doubt about it.
Especially on the road.
And just a beat on Senga. I like the fact that he is back in the mix in any way.
Yes.
Like, yeah, 2 innings isn't a lot, but I feel like anything we can do to shorten the amount of time that the bullpen needs to be in these games, the better. Plus, it's just interesting because no one's seen him in a while.
Right.
You know, it changes up the whole strategy. So I appreciated and liked the surprise element there.
Yeah.
So credit to the Mets kind of for that, because I think even Mets fans really didn't have any idea that was coming.
Yeah, the Mets, Carlos Mendoza has been playing with his cards on the table all year long, right? That was just like the culmination moment of that, where you're like, all right, he's showing us what he's got.
No doubt. The only other thing I wanted to mention, saw some interesting stats. The Mets after Game 1, it said the Mets have had 56 4+ run innings, which leads all of Major League Baseball. They also had 1 hit through the first 7 innings of that game. I just want to, of course, also point out the ESPN stat graphic again. Feel like that's really important.
Relevant.
It said that the Phillies had a 79.7% chance to win that game in the bottom of the 7th, and they were 100% wrong. Thanks so much for coming to my TED Talk.
Thanks.
But again, it goes to show Mets in the clutch. Like, there are so many good things that they're doing, and the fact that they can go off in one inning like that and change an entire game, and that's not just a one-timer thing. It's something that's happened at that point 56 times. I think it goes to show that they really are never out, because in one inning, the whole feel of a baseball game can change.
Yeah, and it doesn't even matter who's coming up. It doesn't have to be the middle of the order. Sometimes it's like 8-9-1, and the Mets are out there doing something great. Yeah, look, I mean, moving forward, right? We said it. We said our piece. We think they're going to be okay at Citi Field. However, the bats are never going to die. The bats just do not die to an unbelievable, you can't even understand it point at this point. It's the question of, is the pitching going to sell them out, or is the pitching going to keep them in this?
Is the pitching going to sell them out? Any final thoughts? And then we're going to wrap it up, and we will see you guys sometime throughout the week. Sort of an announcement on that too, so I'll just say it. I'm actually not going to be here for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday because of a trip I already had scheduled. Sorry, y'all. So that means I'll be watching, of course, but I won't be here. So Ashley might pinch hit with our intern Dan the Man.
We're going to do it on Tuesday after Game 3 with intern Dan. You guys will love intern Dan if you haven't gone back and seen any of the episodes that he's in. Longtime listener, longtime Mets fan. So we'll get it done. We'll be here for you guys. But yeah, I'm nervous heading into Tuesday, but I also feel like the energy is just going to be so high heading into Citi Field, heading into games 3 and 4. They need an off day. They'll get it. The other beauty of this series and all the competition and all of the rivalry is that it's an hour away. They're going to go home tonight, sleep in their own beds, get some rest. They don't really have to travel. So yeah, on that note, Mets in 4, baby. I still feel good about the Mets.
You gotta believe. Great time to say, as always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're all over social media. Hope you've seen some of those clips. And we're on YouTube. It's the same handle everywhere, at YMetsPod. To the hundreds of new subscribers that we've gotten, the thousands of views, thank you so much, everybody. If you're just joining us or you've been with us all season long, we are going to be here with you the rest of the way. And as always, you gotta believe. We'll see you next time.